engineer doesn't give a shit what the artist does.
But how could he? If he meets an artist, works together with him for a while, they become friends, and they do work together.
Yes.
It must, no?
Yeah. They do, but they have no. The engineer has no built-in interest in it. The artist is very much dependent on what he's doing. So if the engineer gets involved, the artist depends on the engineer and becomes dependent on the engineer. And it's a very difficult relationship.
What could happen if it goes wrong?
They blow up and they leave. That's happened hundreds of times. It's a very difficult relationship. And I found no solution. And
But
I'm thinking that if you're going to start something at Ericsson,
I think the big problem is to
You
find a
have
language to...
you have to establish a ground first where they can meet.
A place?
A place, a physical place where they can meet. And then talk about the problems. This has always been I've always seen as the beginning, and it works. You establish a place where say the engineers can come 3 to 5 every Saturday, and the artists can come same time.
Where should the place be? Does it matter?
It doesn't matter. I don't think. It's just that it should be a place where the engineers, the artists who have problems, nobody knows what kind of problems I have. The artists don't know, and they don't know what they can do with the material they have. So they have to meet engineers who will say, oh yes, you can do that. You can do that. It has to be an open space. An open door, so to speak. And we used to have that, and it was very successful.
Which one are you talking about? Where did you have it?
Oh, we had it on 16th Street. We had once a week. And it worked very well. And if the engineers were interested to work with artists, go there. It should be the ones who are really motivated.
How did you get hold of the engineers? How
You don't. You advertise it
in a
on,
paper?
No. Well, we have our own little thing that we distributed among the artists and among the engineers. We had our own mailing list or whatever we did. We're talking about 2 years after the beginning now.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very successful.
How did you measure the success? How did you know?
Oh, when an artist and an engineer came together, we matched them and we had a card where we wrote their names on it. And there was one guy who kept track of everything. And this was very important because there were no computers, and so if some artists wanted some engineer, we used what was called Edge-Notch card, and we matched the engineers to what the artist wanted. It was a very primitive computer system. I mean, you have to be inventive.
Mm-hmm. So it was like a club for engineers and artists meeting.
It was completely open.
Uh,
It wasn't a club. Anybody who wanted to could go there.
mm-hmm.
There were no fees or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who wanted to could go there. And our distribution list was very good. 700 people or something.
Did you have a newsletter or something like that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the newspaper later
Mm-hmm.
called Techno. And no, it worked very well. Except nobody wanted to finance it. It wasn't the sort of thing that appealed to the arts foundations. The artists wanted the engineers, but nobody wanted to give money to this operation.
Hmm.
All is ironical in retrospect.
But so there must have been lots of artwork that came out of this cooperation where people met.
Yes, of course.
So you can. Do you have? I'm
We never cared about that, of course.
Why not?
Well, should we?
Interesting to see what
But
happens.
that belongs to the artists or to the engineers.
Yeah, but
We had no responsibility
No.
for that.
but curiosity.
Why, no.
No,
We had no responsibility.
no, that's right. But you could be curious to see what happened.
That's like establishing no, I don't know what you call it.
But suppose some stupid guy like me or something would say, that's very interesting. I would like to find out the artwork that came out of this operation. Is there a possibility to track down to see that this and this and this and this was sort of came out of it?
It would take you a lot of time.
Yes, smiling.
But it's possible.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
A lot of people would say yes.
Mm-hmm.
It did. What I would do is take the engineers or the artists on our list and ask them what came out
How long did you operate this?
over a couple of years. We could never get money. That was our problem. We were before our time.
And that was probably what was fun with it too, I imagine. Sorry.
I felt that the higher ups in the foundation giving world didn't consider technology a good enough subject matter or whatever you call it. Serious.
It just strikes me that if you did it today, I would imagine that another thing would be possible too, or would be fun to do. I don't know if it has been done, but suppose you do the same thing, not with engineers, but with businessmen,
Yeah.
managers, and you say, okay, let's use Dr. Kluver's model here and do it for businessmen.
Yeah.
That might be interesting too.
Or what would come out of it?
Yeah, well, I can imagine that artists that meet and have problems, which are financial problems,
Oh, I
economic
see.
problems, in order to realize their projects.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, this is just not,
No, it's the model we had can of course be used. The basis of the reason is to make the engineer and the artist collaborate. Towards something that they wanted to achieve.
I'm sure you can mention artists, of course, that were part of this. Can you say that this has your experiment, your associate meeting place, has influenced engineers very much too? That you have engineers that sort of changed their worldview.
Absolutely. We
Who
have
are
that
those
on
engineers?
film.
You have that on the movie.
Oh yeah, we have that on the film.
Mm-hmm.
Where the engineers has been change his life and so on.
Do you think it would be possible to have a couple of these engineers, and yourself of course too, but to teach to other engineers, tell them what is, because that's perhaps better if an engineer tells another engineer why it's interesting to work with artists. That's what you have on the film?
I'm too old for that.
No, you're not.
I'm too old for that.
Mm. Well, if we want to do it,
Pardon?
if we want to do it in Sweden,
Yes.
would that be a good idea?
I have to think about it, but you know, I felt so lousy this morning.
Ja, ja. Det är otroligt bussigt att ta emot mig alltså, som man säger på svenska. Minst sagt bussigt.
Bob Whitman just came.
Oh,
Hey, Bob Whitman.
How do you do?
How do you do?
Hello.
I've been lying.
In more ways than one?
Oh, yeah, for the interview.
Good.
Bob is an artist.
Good. Tell the truth is a bad thing to do.
Actually, he does theater pieces, theater work.
Oh,
And you're here with,
I'm here with
want a cup of coffee?
theater
Some coffee?
director.
Oh,
Oh, okay,
are you a
sure.
coffee person? I'll get you some. Have a
Uh-huh.
seat. I've got chairs.
Great.
You drove down.
Yeah. It's too windy.
Huh?
Too windy for flying.
Oh yeah.
Do you fly yourself or?
When I can.
You're very optimistic, but
I hate to say it, but Bob is the best. Well, I love his
Don't
work,
say it.
and I love his theater pieces are extraordinary.
is there anything where one could see now?
Yes, I have. How about American Moon?
No.
Not while he says he's embarrassed, but we have some footage of.
Well, I did
The
a few
first
pieces
piece.
in Stockholm.
Ah.
Oh yeah, they have them.
Yeah.
What was the name? Dark.
Northern Dark.
No, it wasn't Dark.
Mm-hmm.
And I did another piece or so.
And then you had the installation at the Tealska Gallery at last year.
I see. With
And another one called Fast Cloud. Snapped Moln.
Oh, that's neat.
Snabbmoln.
Yeah. I can't. My pronunciations.
It's
My
good.
pronunciation
It's
sucks.
That's good.
For an American, I guess.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
When did you? Was that the first one you did?
No, that was number 2.
Was that a theater?
Yeah, that was at the Modern.
I didn't say it also.
Hmm.
He worked with Monica Nichols. Do you know her?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When she was still at Modern Museum.
And now in New York, there is nothing we could.
Well, it's very hard. I'm old,
No, you're not.
and I have,
We're-
I have no company and no fundraising, so that's that.
Have you had a company?
No. Well, I mean, I had a situation where I was being supported, and they took it away.
Mm-hmm.
Criminals,
Yes, of course.
evil
Hooli-
people.
hooligans.
Yes,
Oh.
it's a good
They were.
description.
That's a good word.
Mm.
But actually, you're getting ready to do a retrospective, right?
I don't know quite what's happening with
What is
that,
happening?
but at least it'll be a production of a new piece.
Oh, that's great.
Oh,
So-
really?
Mm.
Yeah. So that'll be good.
Mm.
Plus, Bob flies. That's
Yes, yes.
But that's not my work. You have to turn that off, please. Stuff with water. And it's so hard with an underwater housing to figure if the camera's running.
Yes.
And all
Even with an overwater
and
walk.
all 3 times I come back with nothing.
Maybe the camera isn't running?
That's probably what's going to
I'm
happen
pushing all
here
the
too.
buttons, and apparently I end up. I said, great, finally I got it. And last week I went up and spent like a half an hour being pummeled by the waves, and because you're looking through this damn thing, and boom, you know. So, and I come home and I feel, going to look at the stuff I got nothing as usual. So tomorrow I think I'm going to try again because it looks like it might be a good day.
What beach do you go to?
Martha's Vineyard.
Oh, you go up there.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Oh, I bet.
It's too nice.
Isn't it too cold?
No, the water's beautiful.
Oh, really?
Sure, it's what's gonna cold it down. I mean, it's gonna
Oh,
take a
interesting.
couple of months of cold weather,
Oh,
and it's a Gulf Stream, so it's nice right now.
Oh,
It's
it's
the
a
best
Gulf.
part of the year right now.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, it's the best.
So can't you tell that it's on? Isn't there a red light that shows?
Well, if you can see through the viewfinder all the little information that's in there,
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
But the sun is usually so bright, and since it's at a distance from your eye, you can't really push your eye up against that little cup there.
Oh, I see.
So you can barely see that there's something down there. That's about all you can tell. So next time what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the camera, put it in the bag, just let it run, and then go on it. Let it run, and then do the whole thing. And then when I'm finished, I'll stop the camera. So
You have to run then.
You have to realize, you forget with video, you have all this, you have the time.
yeah, you
Usually
do.
with film, you don't.
That's
you know.
right.
With
Right.
video, you have.
Right. So you wanted to know about John Fortner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, he is re-engineering a piece that I did in, was that 65?
I think it could be. Or was it a little bit later?
It could be
68?
65, 66, 67,
Was
66.
it after 9/11? I'll go look.
It
I have
could
your
be.
thing. I'll go look.
But in any case,
Anyway, it was-
it's more than
60s.
30
It was
30
definitely
years ago.
60s, yeah.
And one of the nice little not a revolutionary thing that's happened, but a nice change in the way people look at things is that the curators and people like that have gotten over the idea that every little thread or every little sweat part of the original piece of the artist is not valuable. That's not where the essence of the image or the work lies, but it's in what you see, and the means of that is irrelevant. If the image is consistent and the image is the same, it doesn't matter how you make it. They've begun to accept that idea that what they're buying is the image, not the machine or the technique or anything else. So John Fortner is reworking this old piece using more advanced technology. Now a lot of these things, now that piece was a laser piece, and in those days the way you would manipulate a laser was cumbersome and mechanical in the 19th century, really. Nothing interesting, but it was competent and noisy. But now with modern electronics, it's much easier to make a laser behave in the way you want it to, and much lighter. And in other words, the machinery is smaller. He can make this piece of equipment that needs to be visible, unfortunately, this size, like a pole coming up, and it can be out of plastic, instead of what 30 years ago had to be this size to do the same job. So it's being re-engineered, and I think it'll be much nicer. So that's one example of this change. Another example is that when I started doing these pieces in the 60s, these continuous projection pieces, the only continuous projection format that you had was 16 millimeter film, and all of that equipment was crude, and the film always required a huge amount of maintenance and always broke, and it was expensive. Now all this stuff can be put on a video disc, and using a video screen or a video projector, and you have you had a technology that when I first did these pieces, I assumed that first I assumed I would live long enough, which was a hell of an assumption, and I assumed it would happen much quicker, that the technology would finally be around where you could use these images and have them happen, and it would be easy and it would be relatively maintenance free. Now finally it's happened. So a lot of these pieces can be transferred to video disc, and then using a video projector, it'll be fine. So the big change is that as the curators have come to accept the fact that the quality of the work or the image is what it is and not the technology, specific technology. So you could advance
Switch
it.
around with different technologies and so on.
Yeah. So the piece in Newark,
In the Newark Museum, right?
yeah, they have a piece that's where it's on one of those very thin video monitors, because it's a dressing table mirror. And in the past, what I had to do is I had to make this very crude device with a rear projection to do the same thing. Now it's all and all of these video disc players are on timers. So the museum opens in the morning, and the image is on, and when they close at night, it goes off.
It means even a museum can take care of it now.
Well, when I brought this up, the guy asked me. I mean, it costs a little bit more money out of my pocket this time, a little bit. But instead of getting the $300 or $400 video disc player, you had to get the $900 one for the timer and all that stuff in it, because they don't want to trust anybody on the staff to go down there and push the buttons and turn it on and then go back and turn it off when it's over. So, anyway.
But that sort of comes in after. How does it affect the making of the work itself? Sort of, it does not. It's a re-engineering of something which already exists.
In these two cases, yeah.
But the one you did with John, the collaboration that went to Osaka,
Okay.
or didn't,
Yeah.
that was interesting. That's when you first met him.
Yeah, but the thing, once again, you still end up waiting for technology. So we end up doing a piece. Among the things that were included in the piece were what they call real images, projection of real images. And we wanted to have the real image move towards the viewer and then vanish, disappear, and then reappear. Another one would reappear over here and disappear. Now, the normal way to project a real image the normal cheap way, would have been to make a spherical mirror. But in this case, because we would have needed 6 or 7 spherical mirrors on the order of Mount Wilson, which is about 100 inch, something like that. So now we're talking many millions of dollars, which is of course not possible. So what he did was he invented another system using 2 cylindrical mirrors to produce the same. He's a genius, this guy. I mean, he's pure. He's instinctively has a grasp of optics, and he also knows about math. And I'll tell you about that in a minute.
Yeah.
I'll tell you about his paper. But so he invented that. Then when the specs were given to a manufacturer, this part you'll sort of understand. The specs were given to a manufacturer who said, "Oh yes, we can produce these cylindrical mirrors. It's just a cylinder, curved cylinder, no problem. But it has to be to specs, and optical specs, which means that you can't have any horrific deviations in the surface or you screw up the optics." So these guys said they could do it out of aluminum and polish the aluminum, you have a mirror and so forth. Well, of course they didn't understand what optics were, they didn't understand the specs, they didn't take it seriously, and they screwed it up. And they used up all the money for the project screwing it up. So my friend John designed a system, and he got them to come up with some more money. And he designed a system to make the mirrors by swinging a pendulum from the ceiling of a building, or a roof beam, in an arc in the perfect arc that would produce the curve for the cylinder. And he opened his storefront, and for his Unitarian Fellowship fundraising, he had people come in and swing the pendulum and sand these surfaces to the totally perfect optical specifications out of masonite, which is something. Now you couldn't glue the mirror surface onto the masonite because the glue would make bumps in the surface and again screw up the optics. So what he did was he made boxes, drilled a bunch of holes in the masonite, and produced a vacuum in the box, and sucked the mirror down into the masonite surface and made these perfect mirrors. So that's a combination of sociology, religion, failed business, by the way, failed business.
Didn't he do two spherical mirrors?
Yeah, two spherical mirrors.
Yeah, in order to
combine.
achieve
Right, exactly. And then to make the image move, what we did was use a regular mirror that moved, that took the image, the real image, and reflected it into the space. So, it's kind of complex. And when Feynman was reviewing his project and we were showing him what we were doing, the more interesting invention, by the way, well, I'll just say what Feynman said. He said, when we were sitting alone in the car, he turned to me and said, "Geez, that guy's terrific. Where'd you find him?" In his very studied Brooklynese.
Right,
But the other invention, and the one that we really wanted to develop and make a piece out of, but was impossible because of the optical needs and the financial limitations, was I had discussed something that I thought I saw, but I didn't really see it. But I said, "John, I don't think I saw this. I just say I thought I saw it, but if I didn't see it, what I do is I want to see it." So let's figure out how to do it. And that is making an optical system where something that's far away from you appears closer than the thing that is closer to you. In other words, this hand, which is further away, would appear in my eyesight closer to me than this hand. Okay, now, the first thing he did was go around and ask everybody he knew about how you could do this, all the optical geniuses and the gurus, and they said, "We can't do it." So John said, "I know you can do it." It's very simple. So the first thing he did was he invented something called the Wheatstone. He reinvented something that he didn't know existed in the past, called the Wheatstone pseudoscope, which was invented by the same guy who invented the Wheatstone Bridge. And what he did was to change your eyes so that they're reversed, so that what your right eye sees is moved over to the left, and what the left eye sees is moved over to the right, reversing the parallax. Well, that actually works, but it's a psychological effect, not a physical one. So that what happens, no doubt, what would happen over time, let's say, if you glued one of these things on your head and walked around, it would take a week or so and your eyes would adjust and they would be back to the way it was before. The same way if you walk around with an inverted thing, then sooner or later your brain whips it around again and everything is fine. So we studied this, and then sooner or later, and he said, "Well, that's wrong. That's not the way to do it." So the next thing he did, which was another true invention, was he realized that the property of a corner reflector, which is a mirror in the shape of a corner of your room, let's say like that, is that all the light that goes into it gets bounced around and comes back to where it came from, exactly. In other words, if the corner is optically perfect, the light that goes in will come back out and it'll be focused where it came from as well. So if you make these corner reflectors small enough, and the smallest I guess they could be would be a wavelength or so, They don't have to be that small, but you make them small enough, you have an array of corner reflectors, then all the light, let's say that comes, if you're looking at one of these things, it comes and hits that, all the light that comes from your face, let's say, will come back and it'll be in focus on your face. So that if you could move backwards faster than the speed of light, you would see a mask of your face. In other words, your teeth would be in the wrong place. And your eyes would, you know what I mean? Your eyes would be in front. Everything would be reversed. Your nose would be going in instead of out. Your glasses would be moving around on your head as a kind of a moving indent inside you. It's a kind of neat. And the way you get to see this is you take your array of corner reflectors here, let's say, and at a 45-degree angle to this array, you have what's called a beam splitter, which is a 50-50 mirror. So that, let's say the light from my face goes in, hits the array of corner reflectors here, comes out, and then half of that light that's coming back to me is then going over here. But since there's no face over here, to be in the way of it, somebody sitting where you are and where Billy is, if they were aligned properly, would see this image hanging there. Okay, so that's a wonderful idea and a perfect thing, and this is exactly what we wanted to do. But the amount of money that it would have taken to produce a workable situation on the scale that we thought was important just would have been too much. So, but the other really wonderful thing about it, when we show people this, the reaction was more that when we showed them the small model, it was like, well, what's the big deal? It looks funny, but so what? They didn't understand. In other words, their minds refused to accept the reality that their eyes were seeing. So there was this kind of other psychological effect, which I think is kind of neat. So the other thing that John, he then went the next step, which was to design a system using a square rod, not a square, anyway, a rod with square sides, perfectly square sides, and you do that in an array, put it in a wall. If the measurements are right, you get exactly the same effect, and that was where we were going with this. So in other words, you would have a whole wall or a window, and it would have that kind of
Were they at angles to each other or something?
no, just go through, because the light bounces around inside and it does the same thing. Don't ask me, it gets too complicated for me, and at a certain point where John's talking, he loses me. So in any case, now what he's doing is he's finishing his master's thesis, which he started 30 years ago.
Yes, they must be throwing him around.
And well, no, this is math, and he has a proof that computers don't work. and the title is you'll understand what his proof is when I tell you what he told me. The title is Humans 1, Computers 0. And he says because he in other words, even then when he did it, this is 30 years ago he did this, he figured out a way to have computers not stop, and he can prove that they won't stop running. In other words, they can't solve the problem. And he said, if you can do this once, you've done it. You can prove that they don't work. So he's got that, and so he's sending his preliminary paper around to.
You give it a problem and it just keeps going, and there's nobody can stop
it just goes around.
So
that's right.
That's a fatal flaw.
That's a fatal flaw.
Yeah.
So he said he hasn't read anything about this since he first came up with it, which is, as I say, 30 years ago when he was 30 years ago. 50 years ago.
So that would be the ultimate virus. That would be the ultimate virus to send.
Yeah.
Ultimate.
What about the holography? I mean, holographic possibilities, or
Exactly.
yeah.
That's how he knew you could do this. He said on the other side of a hologram, he said it's a negative, and that's how he knew he could produce this kind of a reverse image. But the thing about it, of course, is that it's not live. And the feature of this system is that it's live. It's real time live. So that was kind of nice.
Computers, you said. Computers.
Well, that's his
One.
paper. Yeah, computer 0.
0.
Yeah, humans 1.
Humans 1.
I said, John, you're sounding awfully old-fashioned.
That's it.
Huh?
But
He laughed.
It's the... Well, you have to go through that.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know, for example, that the leading institution of teaching optics or studying optics is in Mexico. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
And the guy who fixed the Hubble telescope,
Yeah.
who John considers the guru of optics,
Yeah.
he's
Down there,
yeah, he's Mexican and he lives in Arizona or somewhere.
yeah.
And John is hoping to send this paper to him. Well, you know, I didn't know he was a numbers guy. I mean, John, I didn't know. Well, obviously, somebody who deals with optics sort of has to be a numbers guy.
Yeah.
So. Anyway.
I'd be curious to read it, of course.
Oh, I'll tell him to send you a Xerox.
Would you?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sabra.
Love to see.
Yeah. But see, the funny thing is that he apparently has enough money to read. If you're lucky.
You're right.
I mean, I went looking for an article. Good example. And I asked somebody about it. I went looking for an article. I knew the magazine it was in. I went to the place. They had a site. They had a site that listed their publications. So I went through the list, and I was going to go back up the list, but it wouldn't let me go back. I could never go back. So then I said, okay, fine. My way to go back is I'll start all over again. Well, it wouldn't let me. It just bypassed. It took me to where I ended up anyway, whether I wanted to or not. You're sitting there, you know, and you just want to throw this thing through the window. And it's not. You're not mad at them. And I spoke to a friend, and he said, "Oh, just bad design."
Yeah.
But that's not.
But this is what people are beginning to say art and technology is. So this is a battle that, I mean, I feel we're fighting because what we've always done has been physical works, artists and engineers, and it's been physical works of art.
not the
Now-
virtuos, but the real kind of real. Yeah.
And a collaboration. And now what happens is they talk about art and technology.
Uh-huh.
And it's multimedia and it's all computer based. And in California it's even worse. The artist is the engineer is the artist because he writes the program, so isn't the engineer the artist? So at least up to now very bad art comes out. And digital art,
But won't
multimedia
that
art.
show? I mean, it wouldn't be obvious to people, to the audience, that things that come out are not interesting, and that would be a sort of a demand for something else? No.
Yeah, but you know the problem is the audience that we're talking about is no longer relevant because when you're dealing with these kind of mass marketing things, the audience that they regard as the audience is the one who pay a little bit of money for this stuff, and they don't have to know anything. They don't have to have big demands. They don't have to have great spiritual needs. They just have to be able to pay for it. So that's the audience.
But there are people that are talking about digital art and web art, and the Walker Art Museum, for example, is collecting it and is archiving it. So you don't know, but it could end up being like holography. Remember when holography came
yeah.
out? And everybody thought, oh, that's going to be the new,
Yeah. Well, yeah.
the new wave, and it just wasn't. It's too limited. The computer's it's one tool. And artists
People
are
are
going to
getting more and more.
want other tools.
But I mean,
Other-
exactly
other-
that kind of argument, you know, that technology and mass marketing and so